All right. Hey.
Oh. Oh.
I think you're muted. I think you need to unmute yourself. You know how to do that? You need to unmute yourself. Maybe unmute. Unmute. Hey, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you unmute yourself? All right.
That's dark. Oh.
Jonny, can you hear me?
Yeah. see if I can get some more light on the subject here.
Jonny.
Greetings.
Hey, can you hear me, Jonny?
I can, Zach. How you doing?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Amazing. We did it.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
God damn it. Maybe I should-
So, oh well.
Hey, man, I had the fucking headphones plugged in foolishly, and I was all, can you hear me? Can you hear me? I think you need to unmute yourself. Anyway, how's everyone doing?
Great.
All right.
To be here.
What's that?
Stoked to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to see you. I guess we've been in contact for a few years, but we've never actually spoken. Is your name pronounced Kaile?
It is indeed.
All right, and I'm Zack. This is Jonny Barber. We're in Denver. You're in Canada, right?
Yeah, Toronto.
All right. How are things in Toronto?
Hot.
Yeah, no
Real
kidding.
hot.
Look at me. I'm in Denver, and it's been hot as hell.
Right?
And Johnny's in Olympia, Washington.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know, 75 here, nice
Oh.
breeze, just beautiful Northwest. But if you know
Oh, wow.
anything
So
about
someone else
this
showed up just
area,
now.
you know it's not like this for about 9 months of the year.
Yep.
Well, yeah, gosh, I guess good for you. I'm glad you're enjoying the weather. It's been crazy hot here. I guess they're having like a climate disaster in Europe at the moment too. I
Yeah,
haven't really
Yeah.
looked into it, but it's, you know, having to do with soaring temperatures and all the trouble that can cause. So who's got news? Any news, Jonny? Any news, Kaile? Any news, Audrey? Are you muted? You got to unmute yourself, Audrey.
Yeah,
Audrey
I was
Turco
just muting
joined
because
us.
I have
Oh, I'm
these 8
sorry.
million dogs. You know, I didn't want them to be barking.
All right. Yeah, you know what you're doing. All right. So tell us where you're staying, Jonny, and how you came to be staying there. I haven't heard the story.
I am in Kurt Cobain's apartment in Olympia, Washington, where apparently he wrote about 80% of his songs, and where Kathleen Hanna scribbled, came home drunk with Kurt one night and wrote, "Kurt smells like Teen Spirit" on the
All right.
wall, and which led to the creation of that song. And this is where Dave Grohl first moved in with Kurt when they were, you know, when he joined the band. And so he writes about it a lot in his new book, and there's just all kinds of stories about it. So you can see, you know, behind me, there's the Melvin's van, and there's a nice picture there of Kurt with his kitty. And so it's just a small, whatever place. But I didn't realize when I was living in Olympia, I went to the Evergreen State College from like 90 to 93.
Right.
And this girl that I was dating just lived right around the corner from here. So I didn't even realize at the time that Kurt and I were close to neighbors, which is wild. But I found out about it.
Are you getting any vibes?
Oh man, it's
Sorry.
it's just been incredible what's been happening. The synchronicities and stuff are happening.
All
at every
right.
level.
Excellent.
And so I just saw, you know, the 30th anniversary of Nevermind was last year, and I was just Googling about that and saw that this girl, Kelly, bought this house and turned this apartment into an Airbnb.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing that. And it was booked about a year out. You can't do it by the night. You can only rent it for the month.
Huh.
So I was like done, and it turned out I, you know, came up in July, which is one of the nicest months to be in the Pacific Northwest, and
All right.
finishing a book and a screenplay that I started back in the early 90s, but then I had kids and did a bunch of other stuff and got distracted, and I wanted to finish this, and this, like I said, like the synchronicities and the stuff are completely insane. Like first, just baby steps on this one. There's a 12-string acoustic Stella guitar hanging on the wall here, and then I was reading this book on Nirvana that said Kurt bought it when he was in Colorado, Zach.
Okay.
For $32. And he later used it on the song Something in the Way and Polly on the Nevermind album. And it's here on the wall. It's just here hanging on the wall. So
a Stella guitar.
A Stella guitar, man.
All right.
$32.21, I guess.
So are you catching any inspiration?
I'm not using the opportunity to do anything musical because I take this from an ex-Elvis impersonator. Music, it's got to come from you, and it's got to be totally.
That's right.
You to the core, and any attempt to imitate anyone or try to be anything that you're not is totally futile, and people will ultimately just hate you for it anyway. And the best compliment you'll ever get is, gee, you really sound like this other guy, which great, right? So I'm not doing any music or trying to get any of the music to rub off, but I did start this book about, because I played some shows with Nirvana, and they played in my dorm out at Evergreen, and we were running into each other, and then it was like watching them go from being a local band to like the biggest band in the world was just
I guess it took a lot of people by surprise.
And so I've been writing this book about it, and so I'm here to finish the book is what I'm doing, Zach.
All right. I didn't realize you were writing a book about Nirvana.
Well, it's about.
Or is it more about your career?
Well, it's about what happened to me in that era, but it's set in the backdrop of what was happening at the time. And
oh, wow.
Like I just got back from the local record store, and they built a shrine to like that era. They've got early Bikini Kill flyers and Riot Girl stuff and Nirvana flyers and all that. And I was like at almost all of those shows, but it was hard to grasp that what was happening. Like nobody knew what was happening when you were in it. It was just, we were just watching a local band. But, and then I saw Bikini Kill for the first time just right around the corner from here at this place called the Lucky Seven House. Just someone turned their house into a little speakeasy, like kind of club. And I remember walking in there, and the first time I saw Kathleen Hanna, I mean, it was like seeing the female Jim Morrison or something, but like her impact, it just absolutely leveled me. And
all right.
And so much about what I understand about feminism and all that stuff, I mean, completely hit me in Olympia. It just, and then to see how the kids now have embraced this.
That's great.
And these young people really, I mean, they know more about a lot of this Riot Girl stuff than I do. And I was there, you know what I mean? It's just now it's become such a cultural norm. And then of course, with Roe v. Wade and all that bullshit going on, it's like we went right back to the 1950s or something, and it's so
crazy.
So it makes all the Riot Girl stuff to me that much more kind of important what they did.
Absolutely. Let's let Kaile and Audrey have something to say about anything women's rights related, or just women creativity related, or just anything to do with this Roe v. Wade thing, because I'll say for my part, it took me completely by surprise. I didn't know this was about to happen or anything. And I mean, I guess I don't pay much attention to politics, but I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to react. I ended up writing it into my book, And I think I wrote about it intelligently, but what's that worth? You know, it's just a little book out there in the world. But let's hear from Kaile or Audrey. Anyone wants to speak on this?
Take it away, Audrey. I assume you're in the States.
I am. It's interesting because living in Denver, not much change for the women here, but I have friends who have uteruses, I should say, across the country. And so that's been really interesting to see that like people with uteruses are accorded more or less autonomy over their body depending on their geographical location. And I guess that's something that we always knew, right? Because people in different countries have different rights than we have. But it is different when you're like forced to confront it on such an intimate level.
Yeah.
And the amount of impotent rage I have about the whole thing. Especially being my age, I'm over 40. So, a lot of these like rights issues or things that affect women or people with uteruses or fair pay or, whatever, have really come up during my lifetime. And to see, the last 40 years of work towards equality get a hit like this it's hard to swallow.
Right. Alarming.
Well said. Yeah, so I guess it's, with a grain of salt, because I'm currently located in Canada. Yeah, I was not surprised at all. I was following the case very closely. And I think it goes hand in hand with the attack on trans rights, the attack on migrant rights in general. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like I don't have anything to add to the conversation other than like, fuck.
Right.
From the bottom of my uterus. Fuck. And but I guess I will also say that I'm really inspired by, I found out about all of these things from the activists who have been like seen it coming for a long time now.
Yeah.
And I find the organizing and the moving and shaking and the mutual aid and community care that's happening is like really fucking inspiring. To back to Johnny's point about Riot Girl, that like as much as the foundations of fascism have been laid since time immemorial, the foundations for the resistance are also there, and that like keeps me from smashing everything all the time. Although sometimes you just gotta smash stuff for therapeutic sake, but in like a controlled environment.
So I have an interesting take on that. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, go for it.
Well, what you said about the resistance has always been there, and so has the fascism always been there. I feel like the history always repeating itself. I feel like maybe that's part of the syndrome of reality, literally. And then being like someone who's given his intention to art and to like creating works of art from his imagination. I mean, it's about my life, but I'm an artist more than I am a politics exponent or like a social. So far anyway, I have like a big pendulum between like creativity and art and the person I feel that I am, and this idea of the world that has this ongoing like constant struggle that's always been there. It'll always keep on being there, and it's going to just always be there. I feel like it might be a better idea to look in the other direction, but at the same time, I don't want to be, ignorant or like part of the problem or anything like that. I would rather just try to enact a different thing. I mean, is that crazy? Am I just too behind the times? Everyone is so into like activism and joining the struggle anymore. And I'd rather invent something different and better. I mean, I'm not saying I'll let the struggle or the bad stuff continue. It'll just be a whole different thing. But maybe I'm too much of an idealist. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. I have a problem with politics. I feel like everyone wants me to be like politically engaged, and I'm artistically engaged, and I love everyone. You know, I'm not a racist or a sexist or et cetera, et cetera. I'm just an artist guy. I don't even like that is thing. You know, I'm just a being creating, you know, experiences and activities and exercises, et cetera. I don't know. I have this problem with politics. Can anyone relate to that? Feeling disconnected from that political game?
I mean, I think that it's one thing to be disconnected. And I think your viewpoint is valid. I'm not mad at it, but that's also an easy viewpoint for someone who's not affected by a lot of the things happening to have,
That's
right?
true.
Like it is like, because it could affect me personally and it's my body, I am put into the politics of my own body, whether I want it or not. And
That's
now
right.
my body has become a topic of public discussion, right? Of, you know, without my consent, now my body and the things my body does could ostensibly, you know, be the topic of legal action in certain states, or at very least public discussion, you know, whether that's, you know, obviously we live in Colorado and those rights are protected here, but just in general, even if it's on what I would consider to be the positive side of that, like somehow we're talking about my capability to reproduce as if I'm livestock. And so when it becomes that like personally affecting, I think that you don't have the choice whether or not you're political about it. That said, I think that, you know, women are, or, you know, anyone with a uterus has been accustomed to struggle their entire life. Like we're born into that struggle, you know, dependent upon, you know, a twist of fate with genes or, you know, whatever. And I don't think it's like new to anyone. I don't think I don't think that this is unfamiliar territory. I think this is just same shit, different day, honestly.
So just to clarify my point, and I won't like take too long about it, but no progress, only change. You remember that thing in the Bible? Pardon me. Excuse me. About oh fuck, no, nothing new under the sun. I think that's in the Bible. I had the idea when I was writing this book, Your Happiness. Maybe there's never any progress. Maybe there's only ever change, 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 and that's what it is, right? I mean, maybe I believe that. I believe that. So I believe like it'll change again and it'll change again and it'll never, like you'll never get it to be where you want it to be. It'll always just keep changing. So that's my reason to take my attention away from the game of pretending to change it all the time. Like pretending to make it the way you want it all the time. It'll always just change. Maybe that's too like far out and mysticized and unpoliticized, but that's my, because it's a case of governmental overreach into your personal life. And that's the same as a fucking politic, like making you vote for someone or making you care about something political that doesn't necessarily relate to your soul or like your life. I don't know if I'm explaining this properly.
No, I think you're explaining it well, but I think that Audrey kind of covered that with like, that is an easy position to take when politics isn't coming after you. And so like, yeah,
well,
change happens because people make change. It's not a neutral situation. So I, you know, not to say that like I think that it's impossible to make art outside of politics, because it's impossible to make anything outside of politics because we live in capitalism. And that's, I guess, to maybe pivot a little bit, something that I've been really digging into and reading about and thinking about in terms of the kind of work that I do.
Talk about that.
I really love and get off on the idea that like what I do. So for, I guess, to say what I do. I'm what's called a poet for
Yeah,
hire.
I'm sorry. I wanted to introduce
I
you.
have a little operation called the Spontaneous Prose Store. And what that is, I have a typewriter and I sit mainly on sidewalks, but also at events and what have you. And people give me a subject and I write them a poem and they get to pay whatever they think it's worth when it's done. And I've been doing it since 2011. All over the world. I've spent 4 years in New Orleans doing it full time.
Nice.
And there's a whole gaggle of poets for hire out there. So we have like little rows of poets on Royal Street and Frenchman Street.
Do you happen to know a guy named John Calhoun in New Orleans? He has a show called The Good Night Show. Sorry to
Not
interrupt.
off the top of my head, but
Okay,
I was
I'm
definitely
sorry.
doing a lot of drugs at the time. So
He came from Denver.
it's a
old friend
small
of mine.
town. It's a very small town.
I bet you probably met him.
Probably.
But
But,
go on. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, so what's fascinating to me is like the relationship of art and politics and the relationship of art and capital. Because there's this weird double bind of like, we're supposed to do it for the love of it and like selling
we have to
out.
somehow
And I
make
do
money
miss
and-
the
yeah.
selling. Yeah, and like I do really miss the selling out discourse that I came up on, and I feel like it went from selling out to like getting sponsored content, and we're not really having that conversation about that shift. But nonetheless, like the Sistine Chapel was a commission, and there's a long history, the whole history of at least Western art to a certain extent, that like of patronage and these different models. No one's ever fully accepted artists and musicians are like a part of normal society, but somebody's always been paying them one way or another.
That's an excellent
all
point.
the
It was
different-
totally irresponsible of me not to think of that. About
I mean,
about
it's not
marketing, because
irresponsible. I
I'm
think
all about marketing my shit.
Yeah,
There's a
right?
thing, and I'm all
And
about that.
it's
So I know what
not-
you're saying.
I don't know if it's irresponsible. It's just like I think.
Well, it was like a
what-
half thought out thing.
Yeah, what's been fascinating to me is like my like early art inklings and desires were very much out of that riot girl, anti-sellout, I'm going to do this for me. And now I find myself in this hilarious position of like writing poems for money, which is like the opposite of something I'd ever thought. I was really heartbroken in high school when I discovered being a poet isn't a real job.
But you're
I'm
doing
like,
it in
"Fuck, what am I
a
gonna do
unique
with my
and
life?"
original way. I would say that you're not selling out because you're selling something
I
unique.
appreciate that.
I mean,
and
you're
I also
selling
have to
it.
shout out.
But it's unique.
Yeah, but so first of all, I have to say that while it is unique, it's not original, and I always have to credit Zack Houston, is sort of our generation, the original poet for hire. He had a
Who's his name?
little setup.
What's
His name is Zack Houston,
Houston?
like the city, Houston.
Okay.
He's got a Wikipedia page, and
All right.
he ran the Poem Store out of San Francisco, LA, Berkeley. And I saw him in the Mission, in 2009. And I got a poem from him, and it like blew my mind, the genius of his operation. And then a few years later, I worked up the nerve to try it myself. But
I've always been very impressed with the Spontaneous Prose Store. I never knew Zack Houston, but I've always been impressed
he's not
with your
really
operation.
on social media, and I don't think he does it anymore. But I'm like very into the history of this form and sort of any precedents that precede us, because there are all sorts of, the troubadours and the sort of like court poets and that sort of thing. But yeah, I find it really cool and interesting that like when I ask people, when I say pay whatever you think it's worth when it's done, how uncomfortable it makes people. Not everybody. But having to sort of force people or give people the opportunity to think about, like, what is art worth to me?
That's very interesting. What's
like,
the standard response?
People usually pay 10 to 20. But sometimes you don't have tunings in. Sometimes it's $1.
Mm-hmm.
And and sometimes it's exponentially more than that. And it depends. And what's even more fascinating to me is that the quality of the poem has no relationship to the price that people pay, in my opinion. And it's like one of the other things I'm kind of chewing on lately is that I don't even know if poems is what I actually sell in the end. I think the poem is the byproduct, but the thing that I'm selling, the thing that people are paying for is like
spontaneous generation of art.
Not even that. I call it like microdosing ecstatic experience.
Nice.
You know, it's like I provide this space for people to be vulnerable and to get weird and connect. And I feel like that's the thing that I sell more than the poem. Because it's really, if the interaction is good, that's what people care about. Then the poem will seem good. Sure. Because it's a reflection of the interaction.
It'll be imbued with a feeling.
So anyway, that's my...
What Jonny was saying about music, it's got to come from you. It can only be straight out of you, or everyone's going to hate you for imitating somebody else. And you seem to agree with that, especially, and I feel that way about spontaneous writing. That's like a thing that comes right out of the universe, or maybe the subconscious, or maybe the mass consciousness. And it's something picked up on via intuition, I'm thinking. That belongs to everyone. Everyone's got intuition to some degree, but that's like something pure. And to me, I want to follow that instead of the outside world telling me laws and rules and politics. So I have this very immature resistance to it, but I thank you, Audrey and Kaile, for schooling me as the young rebellious male. I'm not even young anymore, but the rebellious apolitical old geezer. And I want to be right about this because it totally took me by surprise, and I want to be helpful, and I want to be correct in my actions and etc. about this. And you're actually the first two women I've spoken to about it. So thank you.
For what it's worth as well. Like it's a hard balance, but I think you touched on something really important, that like the collective consciousness includes everybody else.
That's right.
You know, and I actually wanted to kind of ask Jonny, because I think that what he said about music is very true, but do you ever feel like it has to, I feel like it doesn't come from me, it comes through me. And the best work that I do didn't come from the like me part of me, but it was just like I like beamed into something else, especially writing for other people.
Yeah.
I feel like I get it, which is obviously a different thing.
It's externally, it's like extra dimensional even maybe.
Yeah, and it's, well, I think you know, I'm comfortable calling it the collective unconscious.
I've just gotten through this. I'm sorry, are you finished or nearly? Because you just sent me off on this tirade.
Yeah, but I'm curious. I just want to know if Jonny has any thoughts on that.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
You know, I've been talking a lot.
See, you're getting really, really esoteric here, because I mean, it depends how you define the self. I mean, there's a self with a little s, and then there's self with a capital S. And
tell me more.
It's well, and everything I would say that the capital S would be the self that encompasses everything, all life, all people, all thought. And I mean, I've written songs before that I swore came from me living in an isolated shack on a mountain, being a mountain man with no electricity, running water, away from everyone, before the internet. And 6 months later, heard a song on the radio that was the exact same riff as the riff that I had written in my little shed. Another example would be, you know, when Elvis first laid down "That's All Right, Mama" in Memphis, there was actually a skiffle band in England, the Chris Barber Band with Lonnie Donegan, that quote unquote invented skiffle music the same week that Elvis quote unquote invented rockabilly.
Interesting.
And the sound is almost identical. You just have British rockabilly and American rockabilly. So I think it's more, I don't know, I think it's more than just a collective unconscious. I think at some point that there is no such thing as an individual self. I think that like we are actually a part of a greater being, that there is like a greater thing happening, and we're just like a cell in the body of like a bigger entity, and it all is connected. And I think thoughts are independent and they have their own life. And the other thing is, if a song comes through you, like there's been some really good songs that I didn't write that then I waited a year and someone else wrote, but they wrote it better than me. And so it was almost like the universe was saying, you know what, this person over here is actually going to do a better job with this idea than you are. So I'm going to hand that idea to them and let them kind of manifest that. But I mean, you know, this is, I'm oversimplifying it, but I mean, I've had these incredible, I just met this Buddhist guy on the sidewalk, and we just had this whole conversation right before I walked to my house about the nature of self and identity.
Oh,
and
excellent.
All this kind of stuff. And we just went down that rabbit hole. And I at some point, I'm even wondering if, I don't know, if ego and this self-identity and being obsessed with this idea of an independent entity is just another part of Maya, just another part of
I think it is. Oh my God, now you both sent me off on tirades. The way I write spontaneously is I don't use my ego. When I write about my life, it's all my fucking ego. I mean, it still can be done well, but it's laborious and arduous because you care about making an impression. You want people to know what you're like and all that. You try really hard to show yourself. But when you're writing spontaneously, you can just access every database, in other words, and just like write something wonderful about any topic, anything just imaginary. It can be unlimited. I'm probably not making it sound too appealing, but you can just tap into something complete and perfect. Whereas if you're writing about yourself, you're trying to build a persona sort of, and that's the tirade for that. And then the other tirade was about this book I've just written. I can't remember what set me off now, gosh, but I just wrote this book about someone I met who channels an extra dimensional being or two or three. And I'm this guy who's been writing spontaneously for 50 years, and I know that's real thing going on. I know it's like something happening. It's not it's not make-believe or anything. I know that I have contact with something powerful that is beyond my ken. And when I met this person, I befriended her and I got to know her better and better. And I realized we're just doing the same thing. And that, like, if I had chosen to become a medium about it, I could have been a medium about it. And instead I chose to be a writer about it. And I've had all these like sharp corners and walls to climb, and staircases and, rocks and boulders and things. It might have been easier if I had been a medium and just like gone straight to the source and been, psychic about everything instead of trying to be literary about it. I'm not complaining. I'm glad I've arrived where I have. But this book here that I just wrote is like the summation of my whole life's struggle between writing spontaneously or being spiritual. So check it out. It's coming out. Out. I'll have hard copies in a couple of weeks. I'm about to move. It's called Happiness in Dub. You can order them at Elasticity@outlook.com. All right, those nice are my plug. 2 tirades.
Hey, I think we need to just because the selling out thing was such a huge topic. Like bands anymore pride themselves when they get a song on a Ford commercial. But back when I was in my 20s, the idea of using my music as a product placement was that was hideous. That was the devil. That was like, you know, no way, never, I will not take a dime. So there was such this big deal about selling out. And then when Kurt got so big and he was always, you know, all corporate, you know, rock still sucks and downplaying it, even when he's a millionaire and doing all this stuff. But I think it seems to me that selling out is when, if you take money, if you make a profit on something that you don't believe in your heart and soul and being, and if you're willing to create something that you feel compromises your true belief system and identity, selling out. But I feel like to make money or profit or make a living from your creativity that is authentic, that means something to you, that is actually connecting with other people, I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
I feel like
you gotta survive. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and that's
okay.
and even
I thought it was Audrey.
I guess, you know, I want to hear more from Audrey.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah,
But
I guess you take it away, Audrey.
No, go ahead, finish.
I guess I walk what I feel is this really interesting line, because obviously I'm not doing Ford commercials, or no one's called me yet, but that, you know, I guess, so let me back up and say, I think that what I do is in like the middle of the Venn diagram between stand-up comedy and sex work. I'm like right in the middle.
Interesting.
Because, you know, in the sense that I write a lot of poems for people's birthdays that are like basically greeting cards. You know, I write a lot of poems that I don't quote unquote believe in. Not that I don't think they're fine, sometimes excellent poems, but to a certain extent, I am like, it's poetry by the pound.
Yeah.
And I'm really tickled by the paradox of that. Like, I don't find it to be a contradiction, but I find it to be an interesting paradox.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the reason I relate so much to sex workers, is like, we're creating this like semi-spiritual experience for people. Or like, even I find EMTs I have a real affinity with, because like, or what do you call them? Paramedics.
Oh.
That like, if you have to call a paramedic, you're going to remember that person for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But for them, you're the like third body they've traveled in a like 10, 50-hour shift.
Yeah.
And similar with, you know, people or like strippers and sex workers, it's like, she's so beautiful, I'm obsessed with her. And to the workers, you're just like the next John. You're indistinguishable. Yeah. And not to say that I don't have really beautiful, reciprocally intimate moments. And like, people tell me, I get to hear love stories all day and some like really, you know, grief and really heavy stuff and really beautiful stuff. But I feel like it's been an interesting sort of process of ego death doing the work that I do, because on the one hand, everybody treats me like a rock star, but on the other hand, like, they don't know I'm getting away with the crime of the century. And like, and so like stand-up comedy, you know, like when you're in a stand-up show, it's like electric, and it relies on the construct of seeming to be spontaneous. Yeah. Which to a certain extent it is, but it's also, you have to tighten your set. And it only works if it seems natural, but it's also a constructed naturalness. Yeah, exactly. And so I've been really digging those paradoxes lately, because I find that I don't know, it just makes my brain happy to think about them.
All right.
But making someone really happy with your art, like making someone's birthday, or making their, you know, a poem for their lover, or doing something like that. I mean, that's amazing. Right. Bringing joy to people. How is that not
It's great.
bringing joy to people? To me, is the purest motive, isn't it?
I mean, but that's, I guess, yeah. I at the end of the day, I'm doing it for the money. It's my full-time job, and so it's a weird, and it's that weird conflict of like you said, like Kurt, or like any artist who's like, of course I want to be able to pay my rent with art. Of course I want to more than pay, like I like nice things.
And is that working for you right now?
But
pardon me.
For the summer,
are you able to support yourself?
COVID really put a dent in it because I used to go down to New Orleans in the winters. So for the summer I am, and that's why I'm trying to pivot to more like event entertainment, weddings, Christmas parties, that kind of thing, which is its own interesting shift, because I feel like
it's probably a rich vein of possibility.
Oh, for sure. And like DJ money is good money, but but I feel so like such a feral sidewalk person, and having to like kind of put on my business face.
So no, you actually do DJing instead of
not DJing, but in terms of like the pace that right. I'm not going to be doing pay.
Okay, equivalent social status.
Yeah, that's sort of my and pay scale. Like I was thinking, how do I price for events?
Oh, all right.
I was like, who else does events? DJs. And I looked at what DJs were charging, and it's respectable money. But yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I didn't want to interrupt. I apologize.
Oh no, it's an interesting conundrum to like, forever the relationship between art and capital is like unavoidable, and sometimes it's hilarious and silly, and sometimes it's like stressful and depressing.
I like to think we're all going to figure it out in a few more years, and we're going to be on the other side of this all, and like, in our armchairs, we did it. We figured it out. I don't know. I don't really want to stop like striving either, but I hope someday I get to a more achieved status.
That's maybe my somewhat controversial hot take, is there's only one way to succeed in a capitalist society, and that's by making money. So like you can call yourself whatever, but
it's not controversial at all.
The end goal is to make money. And like that has informed our entire lives. I also like, it has made us all really one-dimensional. I don't know if there would be a thing such as an artist or a writer or a garbage collector and like have these people be so one-dimensional if our lives weren't focused around making money. So I often wonder what things would look like if we lived under a different paradigm, or if that wasn't a consideration. Like, would people be able to like, I don't know, foster more depth within themselves, become more well-rounded individuals possibly? Like, I don't know. But I do think that the only way to succeed at anything in a capitalist society is by embracing the system and making money.
I like that controversial hot take.
Well, or you just get a job. I mean, if you're so much of a purist, then you just get a job to make your money, and you do your art completely independent of commerce. I mean, there's been a lot of classical composers over the years that were successful business people, and then when they retired, they had the money in the bank, and they spent their retirement years composing the symphonies just purely for the love of the music that they were creating. So I guess if it's that much of a conundrum, just get a job as doing whatever, be a garbage collector, and then be in a band on the weekends.
But isn't that pursuit still funded by the success of capitalism? Because how do you retire? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
so
true.
Like for sure, like Kafka worked at a post office or whatever. But I think also, having done I've been like researching this question a little bit. And one of my favorite quotes, I wish I could attribute it, but like, the problem of utopia is who's going to pick up the garbage in every scenario. Who's going to shovel the shit, which is just a fun thing to think about. That, like, you know, every commune breaks down because nobody wants to do the dishes.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel them
But
on a level. I feel
yeah, 100%. But I think that's, yes. But so to sort of like, to give you maybe not a satisfying answer to sort of that conundrum, is that even in pre-capitalist, non-capitalist, other societies where the paradigms were different, there kind of always is a specialized role of some kind of artist. You know, storytellers, musicians, those are specialized roles. And I think, and so I guess like the paradoxical problem with all utopias is who's going to shovel the shit and who's going to make the music.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's, you know, sometimes it's like, sometimes those are priestly, shamanly, spiritual roles. Sometimes they're history keepers. But, and one really fun rabbit hole to go down is like the history of clowning around the world. Because clowns are like a weird thing that almost every civilization and community in like every time period across geography has like some form of clowning at one point or another, often in secret societies, which is a whole other level of awesome.
Wow.
But
So is
yeah, so I don't know.
So is capitalism then some like odd litmus test of the measure of someone's ability to do something then?
Wow,
I mean, it's our current litmus test.
Right?
Like, for sure. It's our current, yeah, that's like, what's her name? Ursula Le Guin, right? It's the water we swim in, the air we breathe. But yeah, I mean, I guess if it disheartens you to think of that, like, or if it's something you're pleased about, I don't know. But like, if it does dishearten you, like, rest assured that society will need artists regardless of the like economic paradigm of that society.
Something else. Oh, sorry.
I agree. That's all I was going to say.
Oh, well, something else we should remember is that they sometimes talk about a guaranteed living wage, and that might be about to happen, and that might like change everything. I mean, it's the kind of thing you might think would never happen, but they legalized marijuana. I mean, they're doing all kinds of crazy things.
I mean,
they never would have done. So
do you have that much trust?
What's that?
You have that much trust?
Oh yeah, I have a lot of trust. You know what? I was thinking about this today because I don't take that stuff as the main event. Like, I may be detached and like not concerned with up and down of politics, but it's not the main event for me. Sometimes it becomes the main event, like the Roe versus Wade reversal. That's the main event. I got to think about that. That's part of my thing. I'll include that in my thing. But like the ongoing back and forth politics thing is not my main event. I know it's hopeless and it looks terrible and it's just full of examples of, you know, bad behavior and lack of evolution and whatever, but it's not my main event. I mean, I know they put it out there. It's the main event. It's the main event, but I just don't watch the news. I mean, it gets in here and there, but.
Well,
yeah,
I was just thinking that it does. It enables me to have more hope. I'm a more hopeful person because I don't pay attention to the news. So it can't be all bad. I mean, it can't be all bad. I sometimes watch the news. I'm just not like dedicated. And I heard Dave Chappelle say when Trump got elected, hey, I know it's bad, just don't make it the main event. And that helped me. I didn't like any of it. It was 4 years. It was terrible. I ended up writing about it a lot even. But I didn't make it the main event outside of my own main event. And that lets me have hope. I'll tell you, man, I came really close to losing hope in those Trump years, though. And that damn guy won't go away. So I'm probably going to have to do battle with that idea again. Maybe not. You never know. Sorry.
That's all right.
And I wanted to say, oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, I would probably add, you know, in terms of the just fixed income and everything like that. I mean, I can't say that when I was a teenager and what motivated me to get in that band, get in the rehearsal room, buy strings, practice every day till my fingers bled, put in all that work. I mean, it was because, you know, you wanted to have your own jet and be a rock and roll star. I mean,
But maybe having that base,
there was a
guaranteed base
motivation
would
that
bring
and you know, I mean, call me shallow, but there was a capitalist motivation. It was like, you know, I want to be rich and famous, and being famous without the money is like having a Lamborghini without the keys. You know, you kind of want to have. And later it turned into maybe something, you know, as I matured or whatever, it became more about some other things. But, you know, that motivation, that was a strong motivator for a long time. This idea that, you know, I'm going to sell a lot of records and be a success.
Stop.
Right. And you know, and then certainly, I mean, you know, then I had kids, and, you know, the original music wasn't paying the bills. And, you know, talk about sex worker. I mean, I ended up being a you know, Chippendales dancer pretty much when I became an Elvis impersonator. I mean, it was this close to just being a male exotic dancer at some point. Wow. And you'd have, you know, these older women offering you thousands of dollars to come to their house and sleep with them as Elvis and shit. Like, I can tell you some crazy stories of being propositioned, you know, just Elvis, you know, but you got to stay in character the whole time. And all this kind of stuff. I had old women at rest homes.
Did you ever consider it?
You know, my dad was telling me to do it. My dad was like, do it, you know, but I mean, I had women
negotiation.
I had women at rest homes shoving dollar bills in my belt. I mean, you know what I mean?
Oh, you got to write that book.
I do.
Yeah.
Oh,
so,
I do.
So at some point, right, yeah, you're like, oh, you know, so now I'm in disguise with the hair, and you know, you wouldn't know, but man, there was a time, I mean, it was that close, and I had to do it just, you know, just because if I wanted to stay doing music and raise a family and pay for a couple of kids,
was a money maker.
I had to make money. I did not have the option, you know, so money makes you do some weird, it definitely creates some weird choices. However, I think if you take away the profit motive incentive, I think if you go strictly, you know, you hear those stories of communist countries, you know, factories producing 2 left shoes and stuff in the box, or people, I mean, I think there's some level, if you just know you're getting money, no matter what you do, are you still going to be motivated?
100%.
You still would, you do your art either way.
Well, because this is the thing, my original motivation to do art wasn't to be rich and famous, it was to get laid. And right?
Skip the middleman.
And so, like, I don't know if it's a more pure motivation, but like, there's no guarantee of me getting laid under communism. And so I think that the motivation is
exactly as much as everyone else does.
Right?
Everyone gets laid the same. Yeah.
But no, I think that in a similar, if the answer is similar to Audrey's question, is that like, even art has always existed even before profit motives existed. And like fame is definitely, like the fame piece I don't think will go away, but I think like fame is a kind of desire. It's related to wanting to get laid.
Yeah.
And, or, you know, it's fame is wanting everyone to want to fuck you. I forgot how to say that, but like,
I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, I think that could be one aspect.
Maybe not for everyone.
I mean, like, well,
tell me
you
more.
know, I would not mind being famous, and I'm not fucking anybody. Like, I'm not fucking anyone. You know,
not that you should fuck anybody, but that like
that's not my
level of fame is sexual. It's not all of fame, but it's a piece of fame. They're definitely
and it might be
cousins.
Like, you know, a lot of, I think the goal of being famous is often to make people want to be you.
Ooh,
well, that's happened to me.
Totally.
I mean, from the other way.
what I'm curious about with all of you, since I don't think any of us are super young here, is how you keep that motivation to create art. Like if you are put in a position where you do have to do things that you don't want to do to make money or focus somewhere else to make your money, like how do you keep up that motivation instead of just being completely drained by the minutia of daily life? Like
I had an
focus when so much of your focus is having to put on like putting food on the table or keeping a roof over your head,
Yeah. I think it at some point because I sold all my music gear a while back. I just quit. I just got out. I got rid of it. I'm like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And it just found me again. And I think at some point it's just part of you. And if you're like, it's like Letters to a Young Poet by Rilke, it's just something where if it's just a burning desire and it's something that's just a part of your makeup that you can't shake, like you kind of have to do it, and you do it, whether there's, at this point in the game, whether there's money or not, whether there's fame or not, whether I'm getting laid or not, whether anything's happening, there's the music, there's the art. And it took a long time maybe to get there, for all that to fall away and for it to actually come down to like, what am I getting from just the act of creating something, and how is it edifying my spirit and my soul to just give birth to an idea or just see something happen and create. And man, I have had some shitty jobs in my life, and I mean shitty. I mean, I have shoveled shit. I worked on gravel pits. I have done all kinds of day labor. I've been a roofer. I've, hauled stuff out. I mean, I have cleaned up parking lots full of whatever, needles and construction. I mean, oh my God, it's a very, very long laundry list to keep doing music. But yet here I still am. I'm still just like, you know what? I think I got another one in me. I still think there's a song that I can find. And after a point too, it's not even about whether anyone cares, anyone listens to it, I ever sell it, anyone ever even, it has nothing to do with that. It's just kind of between me and the creator, you know what I mean? And it took me a long time to get there. It was a long struggle, and now I feel like it's like Kurt Cobain said. He said, I would rather be hated for what I am than loved for what I'm not.
Nice. Thank you, Johnny. I do know what you're saying.
Yeah. I think it just becomes, it's your spirit. It's just, it's part of you. And at some point to not do it is like to cut off your own leg. It's actually, you're hurting yourself not to do it.
The other question I had is, y'all were talking about collective conscience, which I absolutely, yes, there you go. Which I absolutely subscribe to, but have felt very disconnected from. I think
I don't know. Oh, sorry. Are you done?
Well, since the pandemic started, honestly, I don't know what other like
that's interesting
thing to. Pardon me while my dogs go crazy.
No problem.
I love dogs.
I don't know if collective consciousness is really the right term, but I know what you mean by it, and that is the thing that we're talking about. I don't know if it's consciousness so much as unconsciousness, or like consciousness with a capital C, maybe. I mean, it's more like a workshop full of materials rather than like a stream of conscious opinions and ideas. But
and I don't want
I think that's an excellent point about the effect of the pandemic sort of making everyone like separate.
Well, for me, I've had a number of like life-changing things happen during the pandemic, mostly for the negative, like in my personal immediate family. And so I'm not sure what to subscribe that feeling to, but was just curious if that was like something that I was feeling or was felt on a more general like level, like just ennui or like angst, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's
So I
everybody.
can say, yeah, that's everybody.
That's everybody was feeling that.
Yeah.
Don't feel special there. That was global.
Yeah. And I can
Don't
say,
worry,
like,
I hardly ever feel special.
Well, you are special. I'm
You
not
are
saying
special,
you're not
Audrey.
special. Yeah.
for sure. I was in a deep depression, like catatonic depressed when the pandemic started. And I was relieved because I was like, great, everyone's going to suffer with me now too.
Uh-huh.
I love that for you.
And I was like, you know, like, good. Like, I'm not getting out of bed. No one else should get out of bed either. Let's all be depressed.
Oh
And I
yeah.
think that, yeah,
we
it's
were.
a very, and it was like good for a minute and then obviously continued to get bad in different ways. But yeah, I think it's made me, watching the various reactions to the pandemic has made me really a lot, weirdly, like less patient, but more compassionate to the degree to which everybody's suffering, asterisk under capitalism.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, yeah, seeing the many, many ways that people are reacting to that suffering reminds me of all the ways I've reacted to my own suffering over the years. And that's even to bring it back, you know, like I've had times, you know, I'm like, no, everything's fine. What are you talking about? I'm great. I'm not. I'm great. I'm fine. I'm totally fine. And I was like, spoiler alert, not fine. And I've also had moments where I was like, I am ready to dig in and like work with where I'm at not being fine. And yeah, so like all my different relations to suffering. But to bring it back to your first question, I started doing the spontaneous prose store partially as a reaction to writer's block. And I think I have kind of an inverse to Jonny's philosophies, although I do love Rilke also. And I think that there is something to the like burning desire. But I think what your question kind of was is like when you have the burning desire, but the juice dries up. And that, you know, and so for me, I had this terrible writing block. And my philosophy has always been, as a writer, like, I want to always be writing so that in case the muse strikes, I won't have to look for a pen. And to try to really make a practice of it. And so I saw the spontaneous prose store at a time where I was like, had writer's block, but also had just gone through some really traumatic stuff and was like, I don't want to know what I'm thinking. I don't want to think what I'm thinking. But here's this way to be like, well, what are you thinking about? Let me think about that instead. And I sort of outsourced my inspiration to be like, you tell me what to write about. Because I know that everything I want to write about, would make me crawl out of my skin. And it was ended up being a really healing way to kind of get back to the things I wanted to write about. Because ultimately the joke is, no matter what you're writing about, you're always writing about yourself anyways. But that, to sort of take away, to respect the burning desire, but also to take away the pressure of like achievement or getting anywhere with it, that like, if I make a practice of doing my art, then when the juice is there, I'll already be writing and it'll just be part of the thing.
Excellent.
Has been really kind of my saving grace.
I love that perspective. I've been a little bit disconcerted that, you know, ostensibly COVID's over, not that it still doesn't exist or whatever, but people have gone back to work, things are opened back up, and that feeling has stuck around for me. I don't know if other people are feeling that.
Well, there's
Totally.
a couple new
long-term
variants
care
today too. You might not have heard about it yet.
Yeah, no, COVID's definitely not gone. Spoiler alert. But also, I talk about shitty day jobs. I worked in long-term care for the first 2.5 years of the pandemic.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
I was right in the shit, so to speak. Not really. I feel bad even saying that because I was not a nurse. I was not like a medical care provider, but I was working in that environment. And it fucked me up real bad. And I look at everybody going back to normal and I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you people? But that's where, again, so I don't have patience for it, but I have compassion for that need to be like, no, I'm fine. Everything's fine. What are you talking about? I'm great. I'm not suffering at all. Why would you even suggest that?
Alert, none of us are okay. Yeah.
Yeah, no, none of us are okay. And that's also to go back to Rilke, right? Like so much of the pivotal art of any generation comes in people trying to work out what the fuck they just went through.
Yeah.
And like, I can't remember who it was, right? Like, more that, like Tolkien, and I'm not a big Tolkien person, but I heard this and I thought it was really nice, that like the war stuff that Tolkien was talking about in Mordor or whatever, I'm like not a Tolkien person, was his reaction to his unpacking of the First World War, I believe.
Uh-huh. Interesting.
And his experience, and that there's like so many different, I'm going to get the artist wrong, and you know, like T.S. Eliot, that all of these different artists in their own very different ways wrote this really dark, grappling shit in the wake of the First World War that was just their infinite interpretations of like, what the fuck just happened.
Yeah.
And so like, yes, everybody is suffering, and to whatever degree they're willing to admit it or acknowledge it or engage with it. But like, I feel like that's ultimately our job, is to like unpack that suitcase to the best of our ability in whatever time it takes us to do that.
Wow, thank you.
Very nice.
That's a
So
heavy
how
trip,
oh,
'cause that
sorry.
kind of, I was just going to say that's a heavy trip, because that kind of implies responsibility. Like you're unpacking it for not just yourself. You're helping other people process.
Well,
this.
I mean, yeah, like that, as much as we all do art for our own catharsis, like I think that I guess because I take it more seriously now because I have such a direct relationship with my audience. I think most poets don't get to watch people read their poems.
Yeah.
And like, obviously artists get to tour, but like, you don't really get to watch somebody like listen to your song on their headset, you know, and it's a different experience. And so, yeah, I do take that responsibility really seriously. Not that I want to like outsource that to anyone, but I kind of think that it is like that weird paradox of like the things that make us most special are the things that we all have in common.
That makes
and like
me,
the most, sorry, yeah.
sorry, that makes me think of something you said about how the pay that you got for the poems wasn't dictated by the quality. And what I was thinking was that like quality is in the eye of the beholder. Like you might not think that what you're producing is of quality, but it might be very meaningful for someone. And it made me think about this argument I've had with a lot of people about artists' statement of intentions not really mattering, or like when artists say what their meaning means or what they're trying to evoke, that's kind of beside the point, because really isn't it up to like the person viewing or reading or listening to interpret and ascribe meaning. And if you're, maybe one way to note if you're a good artist is, are people picking up what you're putting down, like what you meant to put down? Are they picking that up, or are they picking up something else? And is that some kind of like statement on how well you know yourself? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've also thought a lot about that. And as a nerd, I love an artist statement because I'm like, please tell me what you were thinking. Because I feel like I can learn something from any art practice. And so like the more whatever. But I think also, I wish I had this better quote, that like, yeah, once you put it out in the world, it's not yours anymore. And it means whatever it means to whoever needs it to mean that thing. And I really hate
that's great.
artists who feel ownership over the meaning of their things. I find it very distasteful when people are like, no, you know, like the easy low-hanging fruit, like J.K. Rowling comes to mind. And she seems to have this like compulsive desire to dictate what her work should or does or can mean to people. And it's ruining it for everybody. And like, it's a hard kind of ego death. And I'm kind of really grateful to the people, you know, both as a validation thing when I'm like, here's a shitty poem. They're like, this is the greatest thing I've ever written. Have them all my money. Is great for me as just like I should keep doing this. But also as like an ego check of like, yeah, once it's out there, it's not mine anymore. And as long as somebody's getting something from it, I've succeeded in theory. Even if that something's like, this is the worst thing, like I hate it, it's still a reaction.
Well, no such thing as bad press. More capitalism.
Well, the best rock lyrics, from a musician or a lyricist point of view, if you really spell it out and, you know, those lyrics are kind of crummy. It's these, going back to Kurt again, people would ask him, like, what does this song mean? And he's just like, I don't know, you tell me. Some of his stuff was just completely vague, and a lot of it didn't mean anything. Or some of the people that would call John Lennon and just be like, you know, oh man, this song's speaking to me. I know exactly what you're saying. And he'd be like, you know what? I was just singing what was on the cereal box. You know what I mean? So I think that's a tricky thing. Being a good lyricist is really hard because you don't want to get too specific. And certainly as a poet, like, how do you need to bring the ineffable into what you're doing as a poet.
Specificity helps with that. And that goes back to like the joke, you know, the comedy thing. That like,
it's very delicate balance though. And in the editing, I usually have to get less specific to make it more universal, you know?
But like Kurt's a great example of like, sure, a lot of his lyrics were like incomprehensible, but his language was his images were concrete. And there wasn't a lot of like filler words in the lyrics. And that's the stuff that people... Have you guys ever played the game Taboo?
I think so.
The Fourth Family board game?
Go on.
So it's a board game. Have you played it, Audrey?
I feel like I have, but I don't remember what it is off the top of my head.
So it's a word, it's like verbal charades. You get a card that has a word on the top and 4 or 5 words underneath that are directly related to that word. And you have to describe the word on the card without using the rest of the closest words to it.
Oh, I have played that.
And so you have to kind of like work your way around and around and around.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like that game has really informed my spontaneous prose practice, because really what people want when they give me a word, all I have to do is give a few concrete related images. It's easiest if it's a noun.
Uh-huh.
But like, that's enough, in the same way that my mind goes to like, okay, you give me one word, like where does my mind go when I think of this word? And being willing to follow it there.
That's a really good point, because like Kurt Cobain's music like evoked things for people and emotions, etc.
Yeah.
Like he painted that landscape even with
and it's
very vague words.
Yeah.
I think that's it. It's like, I don't think the words themselves were very vague. You know, they were, vague isn't the word I would use for Nirvana songs.
Yeah, you might be right.
I don't know. That, you know, like they're maybe opaque.
That
or like
opaque's a good word.
Non-linear or something. But like Yeah, but the images were so strong that I think, like painting, you see what you need to see because the colors are bright. That was a weird metaphor, but I'm doing it anyways.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, because the images are striking.
John Lennon used to use a lot of words that had two meanings as well. He was really into, just using all kinds of words that have multiple meanings. So that immediately can take the listener's mind in a myriad of directions, just like, from the get-go.
Yeah. That's an Emily Dickinson move too.
Yeah.
That's an Aleister Crowley move. I think that's
right. It's a classic.
Yeah.
Well, I guess Zeppelin in Stairway to Heaven, and sometimes words have two meanings.
Yeah. Right.
But I think that's a good device to use too. But any advice in there would thank you for that, Kaile, because that, as a lyric writer, that's how I can come up with music all day. But lyrics are always the tough one, man. Especially
hit me up.
Yeah. Well, I got $20. It's worth 50, but it's worth 100, but I got 20.
It's worth. I always tell people my suggested minimum donation is $10 million.
Right.
But it's just a suggestion. But that's I think what you do is magic. Like I understand the concept of music, but like not in any way that I could ever make it. And I think it's like a mutant superpower. 100%.
It really is. There's a reason music and magic are very close to the same word, I think. It's nice. It's something, and I heard someone say, I can't remember, they were talking about how music is one of the art forms. Like, how do you actually say, compare? Like, well, this painter's better than this one, or more talented, or this sculptor's better. Music is the one where you can actually have a competition. You can actually put two violinists in a room and have them do the battle to see who actually is a more proficient musician, or like the two guitarists in the movie Crossroads that are having the guitar battle or something like that. And I found out that was really interesting because musicians don't really admit it, but especially guitarists are highly competitive. And if you go to any show where there's a guitarist on the stage, you can tell all the other guitarists in the room because they're standing around thinking, I could do it better. Yeah. And they won't always admit that. They won't always admit their competitive nature, but there's a reason it's called Battle of the Bands. There's a lot of competition going on, so.
I remember I was really offended when slam poetry came to Denver because it made everything into a competition. Everything was 3 minutes and it was all about easy reference jokes and celebrity names to win the slam. It just turned into a boxing match. But I got used to it. I ended up writing a lot of poems. I was on the slam team and I milked it as long as I could until it stopped inspiring me. But that's what you reminded me of with the Crossroads battle with Steve Vai and Ralph Macchio on the guitars. Reminded me of the slam.
Yeah, but and to be fair, I also was an early skeptic of slam. Mm-hmm. But some of my favorite poets now started out as slam poets. And I think guitarists can get it is annoying because musicians, you really can be like, oh, you played that better. But I think all artists have that competitive streak. And there's something to the poets that came out of those slam communities.
Unless that's just an ego symptom.
They're it is, but it's also they're whatever the verbal equivalent of shredding is. They made it a practice and they got into that language and they're fucking shredding.
Yeah, it can be done.
So you think think the competition was healthy for it then? I mean, it actually grew the art form?
I mean, like any competition, it has its drawbacks and it has its benefit.
I think an
You know, there's
individual
something-
artist is going to have his own experience with it. I don't know if it's going to be an art form effect. It's going to be an individual effect, you know. I wouldn't say it has evolved the art form, but I'm not saying it's devolved it. It's just kind of like stabilized it.
I think it's
I
evolved.
can't believe
art.
I
Huh?
can't believe I'm saying this. I agree with Audrey. 18-year-old me would slap me in the face, but I think
What
it
did
has.
Audrey say?
I think it's evolved the art form, but I mean, take this as, you know, I am the age I am and look like a girl, you know, but I think that there was something really the emotions, the emoting that was happening during like the slam poetry that I have seen has elevated the art form like of poetry
The
for me.
performance of it, maybe. I don't
And
know.
then seeing you know, female presenting people speak profound truth with the emotion behind them and give and like being given that microphone, like that space. And I think the power of their emotions made them heard more. And I felt a resonance with that I think was like revolutionary, at least to me.
Well, I don't want to put anyone down. I saw that same emoting before Slam came around. So I didn't see it as an empowering thing, but I mean, maybe it was. Maybe it was.
Yeah, I think it definitely, I mean, anything that makes poetry more popular, or at least visible to the popular imagination, is a net gain for poets, because like nobody fucking cares about poetry.
Good point.
But also I think that, yeah, it also definitely brought in a lot of people to the community that otherwise wouldn't, you know, women and non-binary people and trans people and people of color. It definitely.
I didn't see a lack of women or trans people or et cetera, like you're saying.
Which again, I don't
before
know
Slam.
if you. I don't
I
know.
mean,
if
in
you
Denver,
would
I was
have
just
seen
part of the
it,
Denver poetry scene. That's
but-
all I'm saying.
But even on a technical level, and again, like apologies to 18-year-old me who was a douche, that like, yeah, being immersed in language in that way and having to think about the performance aspect, how does it sound, how does it read, really did bring back a level of like rigor to the art form that I think that, like, as much as I love Jack Kerouac, kind of had been lacking. I'll be honest, I don't love Jack Kerouac. We're
hate him.
I
enemies.
don't either.
It's fine.
I hate him.
But I know that I hate him, but I also recognize what I owe his work. But that's a conversation for a different time. Like, yeah, I feel like for when I was before slam poetry, it was very poetry, contemporary poetry felt a lot like, this is how I feel about something, and it's important because I feel it. And slam poetry brought it back to like, okay, I feel it, but can I capture an audience with that feeling? And that made poetry better. There's like that whole Dennis Smith and Franny Choi and all those people that came out of the slam scene it's a new, they're doing new forms, they're doing different things with the language, but it's like fire, man. It slaps.
Well, that's good. I haven't heard of these people, and they're probably great. My objection is just like the easy reference jokes and the celebrity names. It was like this easily recognizable style that everyone who won the slam would be performing, and it didn't feel like an evolved thing. It felt like, oh, let's do this reliable thing and keep on doing this reliable thing. And that was the dark side of it for me.
Yeah, I think it's kind of turned that way, but I do think
it's always been that. Sorry.
I do think it kind of turned
I was a host.
people on, you know, like to
It did do that.
And it's also, this is coming from someone who like attended very few slams ever, but has become aware of poets who like claim
I
their
used to
origin.
host 3
and,
readings a week. That's probably why I sound so jaded and.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I feel like poetry, again, like stand-up comedy, is it's either transcendent or excruciating, and there's really no in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
the
there's a
It's
lot
like-
more excruciation than transcendence.
Oh,
At least in the
100%,
90s.
and that's like, no, but that's true of everything. Like, it's They're
But I'm
puzzling.
sorry, I don't mean to be a grouch. Here's
No,
to the
I like it.
slam movement.
I appreciate the perspective. It's interesting to think about, Zach, because I'm sure that if I was in your shoes, then I'd probably feel the same.
I know, it's like everything's changing. They're going up to this weird thing. It's not evolving at all. They're going to, anyway, that was me at like age 19. And then I ended up going along with it anyway. So, I mean, I really shouldn't be complaining.
Yeah, Tommy Pico. Although I don't know if Tommy Pico started as a slam poet. He definitely performs like a slam poet, and it's
Tommy
Yeah.
Tico.
yeah, he's one of. I mean, I'm not. I guess there's always more to possibly read than one ever could, but I feel like Tommy Pico, aside from being a fucking genius, who does do very much pop culture references in a way that I really enjoy, because I'm also kind of like, I don't always love that, but he pulls it off. And he's one of the few people I've seen who's writing like long form poetry. Each of his books is like a book-length poem. And I love his work. And I got the opportunity, I think that was actually the last or one of the last things I went to before COVID, where I got to see him read in Toronto. And it was like drag brunch vibes. Like he was working the room, and it really, like a lot of readings, poets aren't always great at reading their own work. They're kind of notoriously bad at it. And so like slam, I don't know if Tommy Pico is credited to slam poetry, but like slam made poets more aware of that. And
Presentation, the value
is
of.
also just like a natural performer, and to find that, it's like they're both, the reading's good, the writing they're both equally good. Obsessed.
All right, I'll keep that name in mind. Thanks for turning me on to Tommy Pico.
Yeah.
Pleasure. So
Notes.
Yeah, what's going on with you, Johnny?
What?
Notes. You're writing down the name, Tommy.
Oh,
Pico.
writing down these names. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
My mom's she's a published writer. I think she just cranked out her 10th published book this last year and was doing some book tours. And my only complaint about that is how often I would turn up in her, works of fiction, and just like, and then I'd be at the reading, and of course she picked the most embarrassing stories, and she'd say, well, it's veiled in the text, no one will ever know. And I'm like, then how come everyone's staring at me when you're reading that part, Mom? But I guess I did live a colorful life. I gave her a lot of material. But it's, being around. I actually like Kerouac myself. I don't necessarily like him so much as a person the more I found out about him. But I will say, out of all the beat literature I ever read, the Joan Anderson letter, if you haven't read that,
good for you. Neil Cassidy, I agree.
Neil Cassidy,
Neil Cassidy. There would have been no Kerouac without Neil Cassidy.
The Joan Anderson letter is what gave Jack he ripped off his whole writing style from Neil.
Read the collected letters of Neil Cassidy. It's better than the Joan Anderson letter, but read that too.
Well, I mean, to me, Neil, he just kind of was.
That's how Kerouac found out, I can do this spontaneously just because Neil wrote him a letter. And he's like, this is amazing. Because
so I had to defend Kerouac a little bit, but I get it. I get it.
No, totally. My favorite thing about Jack Kerouac isn't even about Jack Kerouac. It's also about Neil Cassidy. That my mom actually, who's like, this was a moment where I realized my mom was cool. and I'm sad that it took so long, but she saw me reading On the Road in high school, and she was like, you should read the Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test. It's the sequel.
Excellent, yeah. And then,
Which
then
it
you
is,
realize
because they're both books starring Neil Cassidy
Cassidy
driving
at the
people
wheel.
places.
That's it.
And I was like, Mom, you're a genius.
Right
But
on.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test is way better than On the Road by like a mile. By
But
10
then he
miles.
didn't write that book, though. That's a book about him. You should read the stuff that Neil
Yeah, well,
wrote.
I have read all of the Beats, everything that exists that the Beats have ever done.
All
I
right.
owe them their, my whole education.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I guess, my one last chance to shit on Jack Kerouac. I feel like he had a really good voice and he used it to say nothing.
Mm,
And that really annoys me. But I'm a Ginsberg girl myself, so
mm,
what are you going to do?
makes sense.
I'm a
I was
Corso
I was
fan.
actually born in the Stanford Hospital where Ken Kesey met Neil Cassidy. And
That's
so,
fucking cool.
and so that's why I was
Stanford
bringing
Hospital.
up, being born in the Bay Area and everything. My first words before I even said mama or dada, my first words I ever said were pretty lights.
Right.
So there you go, psychedelia, babe. But that
Oh.
Neil, yeah, that's why I gotta just say, I get it with Kerouac, but oh my God, Neil is something altogether different. I love
Yeah.
Neil. I just love him.
Yeah.
And I wonder why Denver just will not embrace
It's
Neil.
crazy.
And I wonder if they're just
Are
embarrassed.
you though?
What am I wondering? I guess I
Yeah.
get why they won't embrace him. He's just
Yeah.
too
Well,
countercultural.
we have
for
a
them.
friend, Johnny and I have a friend, Heather Dalton, who made a movie called Neil Cassidy, The Denver Years. Denver did a little bit of celebrating when that movie came out. They showed it at the SIE Film Center, and I think they gave Neil a day for 1 year. They made his birthday a holiday for 1 year. I mean, nothing more than a little notice on the calendar. But then there was talk they were going to erect a statue. They were going to do all these things, and it just disappeared. So it may be about to happen, or it may just like try to happen every now and then and never quite happen.
Wait,
But
so
we know
Zack,
about it.
Zach, you just said like you don't like Kerouac either. I mean, this is a guy.
I don't mean
You
to say
wrote
I
a
don't.
book called
I
The
just
Denver
didn't.
Beat
No, I
Scene.
just
You
didn't
don't-
want to. I didn't want to cause an argument. I'm not saying I hate him. I didn't say I hate him, but I don't really. I spent years trying to imitate him, and I will say that I'm grateful to him for the effect he had on my ability to contact whatever it is. And I can't renounce him. I don't even think he said nothing. He tried to talk about himself. That's what he did wrong. He didn't talk about the world. He tried to talk about like Nirvana and Buddha and stuff like that. And that's not for everyone, but he was a guy who found a way to write about his own life in a way that he enjoyed. And when I picked up on, oh, you can do that, I started to do that, and I did it for like 10 to 15 years. So I can't say I'm, apart from him. He's like integral to whatever happened to me where I am now. But
Right.
I'm not someone who's like, oh, he was great. He wrote like no one else. I mean, he helped me become myself, but it's more that than an admiration. And the Neil Cassidy piece is complicated by having written that beat book, because now I'm friends with Bob Hyatt and Jamie Cassidy and Randy Ratto. And Randy Ratto is about to release a graphic novel of the first third, and I might get to write the script. But he hasn't said
Really?
yes. He hasn't said yes. But wouldn't that be so awesome?
That'd
He
be
hasn't
cool.
said yes yet. But I think I'm a pretty good choice.
That'd be amazing. Be amazing. Neil, bro.
Well, I'm trying to
Something.
get away from that beat association, as you see. But I mean, it's a chance to make money, and it could be a work of art too. I mean, to write a script for a graphic novel of a memorable piece of history. I mean, the first third, not the best written book, but integral to the mythology. And I'd sure like that job, but we'll see what happens.
Hope you get it.
Thank you.
So can we maybe, to bring it around a little bit, full circle? Okay, I I have, 22-year-old daughter and wife that, just, this is, I guess, a question for the women here. But there, with all this that was happening, we went in with, the RV Wade and everything like that. I mean, what would you say they could do? I feel like they're sitting there going, like, what can we do? Like, what action can we take? Like, how can we best
that I
apply
can help with.
ourselves? Yeah, and just how can they
Wherever
seriously
you're
best
located,
apply themselves? Yeah.
Yes. Wherever you're located, there is already a group that has been doing this work for a very long time and had a plan in action. Google them and volunteer or send them money.
Yeah.
But I think that it's a very particular kind of expertise that no one is going to individually gain overnight. It's not like starting up a soup kitchen, which anybody can do. So find the people who are already doing the work and offer them your time and money.
Yeah.
I think is the best thing.
Yeah, that's
solid. I don't know if Audrey.
No, I absolutely agree. And those groups have been around a really long time. This isn't new. I also think, burn down the patriarchy and white supremacy, but barring that, I myself have become a mini Plan B pharmacy. I went and bought a crap ton that I can mail. I have a lot of friends that live in unfriendly states. So is that helpful? I don't know. But I do know that I can push you some Plan B. That's what I know.
Yeah, and I guess I would say also not that Planned Parenthood is bad, but they're they already have all the money and all the volunteers. So your local thing. But I think that's true. Sorry?
Would you know who to suggest by name, Audrey? Would it be Planned Parenthood or who would it be locally? Do you happen to know?
Google
I'm asking Audrey if she knows.
There are groups that are not Planned Parenthood. It's a little bit different in this state, but I do think Googling is the best because a lot of these are more underground things. I don't know that I would be posting people's personal contact info. And they're pretty ground roots organizations, at least the ones that I'm aware of. And granted, this is the state that I am in, so I know the people that I know, and that's it. But keep in mind that those organizations and groups are doing things that could potentially get them in trouble, and they are organizing with other people, and they already have those connections, and those people don't necessarily want to be known either. Especially if they're in an unfriendly state. I think that's why it's also good to give money to those organizations. They've already fostered those connections and they have proven to be trustworthy. The people that run the groups have proven to be trustworthy within their network. And we're all unknown quantities, frankly, especially if you don't have a uterus.
And I would say, that I guess to also add to that, because of that, look for sexual assault support organizations. Support trans people in whatever way you can. And domestic, I feel like a lot of it is folded in with domestic violence stuff, and sexual assault and trans people support is a great way to also help. That they're all the same fight.
All right.
And racial justice, of course.
Well, we've had a very interesting conversation tonight. You've all had great things to say. I want to ask your willingness to be included in a film that I'm making. I would edit this extremely. I would probably just show portions of things that others have said. I'm probably not going to feature myself at all in this film, and it probably won't get made for another couple of years, maybe sooner. How do you guys all feel about that?
Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
Cool with it? You're cool with
Yeah,
it?
as long as long as you take me completely out of context, so nothing I say.
Right.
Well, there'll be.
So everything I say
contextual
makes me look like a complete lunatic.
Right.
That's, yeah.
Well, so I also
There'll
am
be
curious, where are we
contextual
going to be
relevance.
able to listen, or where are we going to be able to tell people to listen to this?
I'm going to publish this podcast at campelasticity.com probably tomorrow or the next day. Probably tomorrow, though.
Cool, yeah. Will you send me a link,
I'll
pretty
totally
please?
send you a link. Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I got to run, you guys.
All
This has
right.
been
Thanks for
delightful.
being
It was
with us,
so nice
Kaile.
to
It's been
meet
great
you
to
all.
meet you.
Nice to meet
And-
you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I learned a lot from all of you. I'm
Likewise.
grateful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys. Take
Thanks,
care.
Kaile. Good luck with the Spontaneous Prose Store.
Thank you. Good luck with the book.
Thank you.
And the
We'll have to
documentary,
talk
all the
more
things.
about spontaneity one of these times. Maybe
Yes,
on a
drop me a
future
line.
cast. I'll do that.
Fabulous.
Have a good night.
See you later.
All right.
Hey, Zach,
Hey, Johnny.
is it just you and me now?
I think Audrey's still up there. I don't know if she's.
I'm here.
Yeah, how's it going?
Hi, Audrey. Yeah, hey, dude, Colfax Museum, Zach, how am I gonna get this done? I mean, it seems like maybe getting a hold of the South Park boys might be my Hail Mary pass.
That's a great idea. Do you know them? I have a mutual friend with Trey Parker, who's a nice woman named Toddy Ivy Walters. I could introduce to you, and maybe that would help.
Yeah,
Unless you have another connection.
Well, I think maybe they have the requisite sense of humor and sensibility. They certainly have deep enough pockets, and you know, with the Casa Bonita thing and their
I think that's a great idea.
So if I'm just saying this right now out to podcast radio land, like open letter to South Park creators, guys, hello, Colfax Avenue Museum, we need you. I've got an amazing collection of stuff. It needs to be preserved. The story needs to be told.
Yes. What's your website?
Colfaxavenue.org.
Excellent. Yeah, Trey Parker, Matt Stone, check it out.
Yeah, because I really want to take it forward, and I think I was on the podcast last time with you, and I was talking about it, and that was after we had some real hard knocks. But then, you know, the pandemic I mean, museums were on the front line of everything being closed down. We were just getting back on our feet, but I've really tried to get it going with a lot of the Denver city government and city council and the business improvement districts and everybody. And I don't know, it seems like they did the risk assessment, and maybe for them to rally behind something to do with Colfax is, you know what I mean, a little bit out of their wheelhouse or a little too risque.
Neil Cassidy or something, yeah.
It's just like building the Neil Cassidy statue, yeah. But
Yeah.
The support that I've gotten from the people on the street and friends and, you know, like whatever,
and it's a remarkable achievement. You've been working on it for what, 10 years now, more?
Yeah, well, almost 20, since 2004. And the collection has grown. You know, no one except the wife and I have seen all the stuff. I mean, the recent acquisition is a model that somebody built for the Casa Bonita house band. And
nice.
each member of the band is a different animal. It's sort of like a Chuck E. Cheese thing or something.
Perfect.
It's on a little stage that's wired for sound and has a curtain, and then on the kick drum it says the, you know, Casa Bonita Quintet or something. And apparently it was a model they made for this house band, but then it was never realized in the restaurant. But this guy in Kansas got a hold of me and said, he's like, I got something your museum's gonna want. And it was this little, you know, model.
And that's just one of thousands of items.
And that's one of
museum.
Thousands of items. We actually also had a first edition of On the Road, and I found a old 1940s photograph of Jack Kerouac on Colfax Avenue, which is it's the only photo of Jack on Colfax I think in existence.
I've ever seen it.
And I had it verified by the Kerouac estate hasn't written back yet, but the Jamie Cassidy and all them just saw it and were like, oh yeah, that's him.
Nice.
So that's why we gotta, I really want to get this done. It's not for me, it's not some, I don't want this to be some insane vanity project. I think that, the people of Colorado, they deserve
the community,
it.
It's for
They
posterity.
need it. The community needs it. And with all the stuff, Colfax, it's had some hard knocks. It really could use some positive PR,
I agree.
So anyway, Radioland, Trey Parker, Matt Stone, get a hold of me, Colfax.
Yes, sir. I'll help you put that across. What do you think of that idea, Audrey?
Which part of the idea? I'm here.
Oh, the Colfax Museum, getting Trey Parker and Matt Stone to help with the funding and make the Colfax Museum a solvent endeavor.
I think it sounds like a solid plan. I mean, I think that they have some kind of investment. I think more people than that who have lived any significant portion of time in Colorado should have an investment in that, though.
That's true.
Yeah, me too. There's been a lot of support, but there's also been some very key people that I thought would be like rushing down there and supporting that never really showed up, where I was kind of surprised. And so I've been a little bit shocked by, and after the flood happened, and we were in really dire straits, it was like the majority of phone calls I got were from people that were like, well, is this piece for sale? Well, is this piece for, like, they just wanted to part it out for private collections. And there were very few people that were speaking in terms of, hey, can we help you get this thing on the ground and make it happen
and sustain? Yeah.
And it broke my heart. It was pretty rough. I mortgaged my house to get this thing started. I almost lost my house when the pandemic started because of a bank loan and all this stuff going on. And then my dad passed away.
Sorry to hear that.
And his dying wish was to pay off the loan on the Colfax Museum. So go, Dad.
Right.
But anyway, so I got all the stuff. The collection's still together, and it really is. It's amazing. And then, the thing is, like, to keep bringing up because I'm in Nirvana land right now, but there's people coming up to this apartment from all over the world. There's people, like, you'll see them out in their car driving by and walk out, and they're like from Peru or Europe, or, and Denver's so bad. It needs a place. It needs that, and I'm sorry, I'm not like a huge, like, Meow Wolf fan. That's another episode, but I feel like they're just kind of co-opting culture, and then they don't even credit the artists on their exhibits, So I feel like this is a Denver story. This is about us. This is about uniquely Colorado, uniquely Denver.
Absolutely.
And I seriously, like, anybody listening that has got some support or ideas how to make this happen, like, man, I am all ears, please.
It's risky, but have you ever considered taking out an ad in Westward, or have you ever done that? Soliciting interest, donations, contributions.
Wow. No, I haven't taken out an ad.
I don't know if it would work.
Maybe that's it. I need to get a big page ad that's just like, save this museum. Come on.
It is the Denver paper, but then, like, it's Wednesday again, and if nobody called you that week, are you going to do it next week? How many weeks do you sign up for the full page? But that might be the way to get something done.
Maybe reach out to all the walking tours and see if they would, like, start or stop or want to be invested somehow. There's a ton of walking tours in Denver that, like, walk to historic places, specifically around, like, beat stuff, but in general, or do, like, haunted whatever. Like, I'm sure you could find something
That's
in the
an
collection
excellent
that,
idea.
That's
you
a
know.
great idea, Audrey. I'm taking notes again, back to the
Right
notebook.
on.
Yeah, because I mean, I've got an exhibit down at History Colorado right now. And the Denver airport, you know, it had commissioned me to do their walkway for a while. And so there's other things, but you know, there's always this caveat of, you know, make it children safe, make it appropriate. Don't mention drugs, don't mention hookers, don't mention, you know, and you're just like, my belief in the museum has always been, you know what, if it happened on Colfax, it's going in, fair game.
Make it the classic, like, you know, horror room of New Orleans where you have the back room that's 18 plus.
Yes.
Charge extra
Another
for
fine
the
idea.
back room.
God dang, why didn't we meet sooner? Like, I mean, is it too soon to tell you I love you? I mean, oh my God. All right, I'm taking more notes.
I mean, because then you can have the family friendly and then you can have the other stuff.
That's so brilliant.
Yeah, I think that's genius. It'd be like Colfax Day and Colfax Night or something.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
18 plus is brilliant because I don't think they understand too. I don't think the city really understands that there are internationally, like Colfax is internationally known. Like they're looking at it like it's this myopic, like let's talk about the immediately adjacent neighborhoods and how it impacts this and whatever. I don't think they get that it's like the Sunset Strip or Beale Street or Times Square or something. Like it really is an internationally known thing. And even when my museum was tiny and open, I had international travelers coming in there, you know? And with the Beat Generation stuff, certainly, I mean, they're, you know, they're your average European.
Bob Dylan is another.
The Bob Dylan story, and you know, Bob Dylan recorded a bootleg in the Motel de Ville with Robbie Robertson that's out circulating. I'm trying to find that vinyl record, and you know, they're tearing down the Motel de Ville. It's probably gone by the time I get back in town. But that was like a Dylan shrine, and you know, there's so many key things that happened. I mean, even I went to the Denver Museum of Science and History, and right before I came to Washington, and they took me down in the archives and showed me all this Native American stuff that they found, you know, along Colfax up there by Golden Heritage Square, that dates to 10,000 BC. I mean, people have been chilling on Colfax for, you know, for millennia, and you know, there's the Native American history and the West history, and even you know, the Spanish Padres and stuff came down Colfax, and you know, so it's got legitimate Western history that a lot of people don't know. And even the story about Schuyler Colfax himself, it's amazing how little is taught about him in our schools. I mean, they just don't even mention him. And
it's a criminal thing.
And he you know, he ratified the 13th Amendment. He was the Speaker of the House that ratified the 13th Amendment, freeing the slaves. I mean, you know, that's kind of legit.
That's very legit.
And I certainly, it makes sense why all the marches and the Martin Luther King Maraude and the Gay Pride and the women's marches and all these things happen on Colfax. I think Schuyler I think he'd be thrilled by it myself.
Yeah, Colfax properly recognized as the artery of culture and commerce. It's been for thousands of years.
It has been so for millennia, Zach.
Well, I'll do everything I can to help you put across the message. I think the Colfax Museum is a great cause.
Thank you, Zack. And I'm talking too much. We should be letting Audrey do all the talking. And just, what do you got, babe?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Palm full of nothing.
Can of beans.
Yeah, a can of beans. Well, anyway, that's the next thing. I think that was the only move I could think of. That was the Hail Mary.
That's a great
pass.
idea. So it's the South Park guys, the 18 only room, And what else did we come up with?
Oh, the walking tour people.
Walking tours, network with the walking tour people.
Yeah.
If you really want to get people in there, you need a yoga room and a dungeon. That's what I heard.
Ooh, oh, notes. Oh my God, notes. Yoga dungeon.
A
Yes.
sauna.
Oh my God, the yoga dungeon's going to be huge.
Yoga dungeon, Colfax yoga dungeon.
You're right, though. You need kind of like an escape room, an escape yoga dungeon.
Oh, nice.
You know, get your yoga on, and then, you know, get scared by the dungeon, and then you turns into an escape room.
Just like Colfax.
Just like Colfax.
I mean,
right?
that's not too far. That's not too far from it.
That's right. Don't do most of my yoga.
So yeah, it's some
videos on YouTube or anything like that. Like you could start drumming up business, like even from outside.
Oh yes, good idea. You could even use, I mean, I'm going to do it right now with this Zoom video. You could make them yourself though and post them anywhere.
Yeah, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and you just like maybe pick a piece in the museum and expound on it a little bit.
Oh, okay. More
Nice.
notes. Just keep talking. It's just, it's music.
Oh, just verbal vomit.
No. This is, well, you know, Colfax has seen its share of vomit. This is, you know, keep it coming here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Johnny's too close to the piece to be objective about it. He's really benefiting from your tips.
So, I mean, what would be my angle? I mean, you think just like take an artifact and just do like a short couple-minute story about the significance of the artifact, or?
Yeah, like, you know, maybe make a TikTok account that is, you know, Colfax or whatever, that's just like, you know, celebrating the longest road in America, whatever your tagline is, and then walk people through the museum and take them through stories, you know, sell it with stories.
Perfection.
Sell it with stories. Well, that's what I mean, every time I've given a talk, that's what, you know, I've given talks at museums and universities and schools, churches, everywhere, and it's the stories that hook them. You know, when it's just dates and this happened and a date and whatever, you know, everyone's falling asleep. But you know, when you give them the real backstory, for example, okay, we all know the Big Bunny Motel on West Colfax. Now the Bugs Bunny Motel.
Yeah.
Well, there was the legend that the actress Sue Lyon, who was Lolita in Stanley Kubrick's film, there's the urban legend that she tried to commit suicide by jumping out the window of the Bugs Bunny Motel, but it's only one story. Right? So she just kind of landed on the ground and failed attempt. But see, I was always asking myself, okay, now why did she try to kill herself? And this is where it gets good. She fell in love with a guy that armed robbery and killed a guy. And so he was in prison. And I found an old publicity photo where Sue Lyon is standing at the front gate of the Colorado State Penitentiary in a wedding dress, holding a Bible and a bottle of champagne, being ushered in to like marry her true love, who was in lockdown. And she swore, "I will wait for you," right? Well, she did. He gets out within a week, knocks off another liquor store and kills a guy and goes right back to prison. And she was so depressed that she threw herself out the window of the Bugs Bunny Motel.
Wow.
So that's one example of a very long, very, you know,
but that's the kind of thing that draws people's attention in, for sure.
Yeah.
Sell it with stories. Good advice.
In the museum itself, you know, extra money, make tours of like the museum where you have that tour guide that takes people more in depth to what they're seeing.
Yeah, I think the 18 plus room is genius, because then you could, you know, then it's no holds barred, anything goes. Here's the real Colfax. Now, you know, the gloves are coming off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's genius. So if you think of anything else, Audrey, let me know. Get a hold of me because you're prolific.
Yeah, it
Well,
can't be
thank you.
beat.
Yeah. So I didn't get your background in the podcast. You didn't really discuss. Are you a writer or artist, or what's your kind of?
I mean, I do a variety of things, but just mostly for personal edification. I have a square job. And I run a nonprofit that's on Facebook as well, a nonprofit group feeding people. That takes up some of my spare time.
Nice.
So like, what's your medium? What do you work in? Writer or?
I write, I paint, watercolor, gouache. I'll do about anything. I like to be expressive creatively.
That's the way. Good for you.
Yeah, good for you. That's what I said too. I just got to a point where I just create just to create. And I think having any motive or having a reason or having something that some goal that you're trying to get out of the act of creation, it just gets in the way.
I think when I was in my 20s, I really did want to pursue a creative career. I don't think it was really until my father got sick and I needed more money that I was like, okay, well, this isn't cutting it. I need to go figure out how to do something else. But I will say that I appreciate now the freedom I have to make whatever I want to make, create whatever I want to create, because I don't have to have an audience or a buyer in mind. I don't have to have any outside input into what I'm producing or anything like that. And if I choose to share that with people, then it also feels like more intimate, like they're getting to know me or we're having a moment. That sounds really fucking weird.
No, it makes total sense.
Yeah, so I don't know. I have found some enjoyment and freedom of not having kind of let go of the attachment of making a living off of art. And I did try a lot in my 20s to do so. Sorry, dogs.
Hi, puppy.
I think she has a visitor, so I'm excited the dogs.
My dogs are creatively expressing right now.
Yeah. Well, good for you. I think that's that's really the best way to do it. I mean, you figure like those first dwellers on Colfax or the native peoples or something, they do all the hunting and gathering and getting the camp set up and starting a fire and eating and everything. And it'd be like, yeah, maybe I'll go, scratch on a canyon wall or something. But you just wonder if someone in the tribe was over there. Yeah, I don't want to build a fire or hunt or build shelter.
I'll be the guy who draws on the wall.
I'm an artist. I'm the guy who draws on the wall. And everyone's looking at him like, man, when the tribe moves out, can we leave him behind?
Wow. That's a good question. I never even have thought about who ended up being the one to do it. It's always presented as the tribe did it. You don't think of it in terms of members, individual societal members.
Think about the idea though of pure artistic or creative expression that is not tied to an attachment of place or anything.
Yeah, those first scratchers didn't think about capitalism at all.
Yeah, or TikTok, or dude, I got to put this on the gram.
Whole different experience.
I have thought about making art just for TikTok because I like the idea of making shorts, of challenging myself for that and just putting them out there anonymously, honestly, just to contribute to the global mindfuck. But I will say that there's something really interesting when you're not making money off art, but still creating, that really makes you audit the compunction to do so. You still have that desire. I don't know. It's interesting because it's a different, it feels like a different motivation for me.
Yeah. I like that.
Audit the
Sounds like
compunction.
fun.
That is like, whoa,
Sorry.
poetry.
For sure.
God dang, audit the compunction. That's like, that might be my new band name.
Ontological
Voila.
autocracy.
Yeah, but you're totally right. And you know, that's, I think what was so bizarre for everyone in Olympia when all this stuff took off and all these bands became world famous and everything, because, you know, the Northwest was so removed from everything else. No one thought anything would happen up here. People didn't come up here on tour. It was really geographically isolated, and everybody just did it for themselves or their friends, or, you know, and then look at, you know, the impact and the quality of the art was created when you just took that commercialism or that idea just completely off the table. You know, I really do think it gets in the way. You know, I guess if it depends on your motivation, but if you are truly at your core an artist, then, you know, that's obviously, that's the most important thing, is the medium, is the art. But, you know, to hop in it, I mean, I learned, you know, the folly of saying I'm going to make money as a musician. I mean, you know, when the internet came along, you know, everyone thought, oh, that's going to level the playing field, but it only made it worse. I mean, the only people making money as musicians are at the very top.
Yeah.
You know, it really didn't make a democratic playing field, or it really enhance the income of indie artists. If anything, I mean, I think I got a check from Spotify for $27, and my daughter was like, "Oh my God, Dad, you've got a hit."
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's the same for
13
writers too.
plays.
You know,
Oh, hell yeah, it's hard.
the writers whose, you know, books I buy, I'm also often supporting them on Patreon, because they just can't make any money anymore
Wow.
with the prevalence of like pirating or audiobooks or the availability of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not to mention most bookstores are disappearing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that part of it's yeah, that's really sad. Yeah, my mom, like I said, my mom is on publishing her 10th book, but, you know, she taught creative writing at the university level for a long time, and had a few students that, you know, went New York Times bestseller. And I mean, that was just so frustrating for her to see, like, hey, wait, I taught you and you're on the New York Times bestseller list. And but it really is, you know, now she gets, you know, that she wants it on her own terms, and she wants to write and talk about things that are important to her. And, you know, if you want to, I mean, it's not like Dan Brown is this phenomenal writer from a technical standpoint, but in terms of like cranking out a page turner, or Stephen King, same thing, you know, wow, you know, not the most poetic writer or prose or whatever, but, you know, in terms of just, you're glued to, you know, what's going to happen in that next chapter. I mean, there's an art to it. There's a science to it.
Yeah.
So
I don't think that you can measure the impact of any kind of artist as being in some kind of correlation to the amount of monetary success that they receive, like specifically during their lifetime. But I mean, I highly doubt in 1,000 years that the books of Stephen King will be like, you know, heralded as these great historic works, you know?
yeah. Yeah.
But there's something about that guy, though. Like, I mean, I specifically Stephen King. That guy succeeded. You can say the same thing about Bukowski. I think Stephen King got there a little sooner. Bukowski succeeded too, but it was like magic and luck, because he never tried. He just found a fan who offered to give him money every month if he would only give him his poetry to publish. If he quit his job and just only wrote full time and gave the poetry to John Martin, he would get $100 a month. They figured out like the lowest amount that he could buy all the beer and smokes that he needed. So I like that story. I mean, but I also like the Stephen King story where you figure out how to do it like a mechanic and learn how to tune the car the way you want it and just drive really fast and be famous. Writing what people want to read, writing page turners, you know.
Yeah.
And that's still like my take on writing as a career at the moment is I'm going to do it as well as I possibly can. It's going to be a small, insular kind of a support system thing. And maybe someday it'll go, Nova or not. And I've sort of stopped expecting fame, but I started that way. I totally started out thinking like, oh, I'm born to this. I'm a genius. They're going to know it. They're going to find me. I don't know how, but I'm just going to do it. And now I'm like 50 years old and I got to move and, I got to make money and et cetera, et cetera. It didn't happen. My dream didn't come true. It still seems like it could, but it's going to take a long time and it's going to start very slowly and small. I don't know if you still expect like a big breakout or if you're going to be with a small support system happily playing music, or if you're still expecting someday to go Nova.
Oh yeah, that I've abandoned all hope, all ye who enter here.
Yeah.
I think that it's now, I think the biggest thing, and especially like I said, after being like an Elvis impersonator and stuff for a while, the biggest thing is authenticity, really. It's just, it's like, I want to use my art and music as kind of a feedback loop to help discover myself and really right? And really get to know like when my own work is speaking to me and when my own work is like, oh, okay, I am now, that feels like me. That's the real me. I think I'm using it maybe more as an exploration now of self-discovery than.
But it always has to be that to some extent. I suppose it's less saleable to the masses if it's all about self-exploration, but it's an integral part of creativity. I mean, it's not something you can avoid or ought to try to avoid. I guess
I'm with Audrey there. I'm with Audrey there. I feel like if someone comes along with you, you feel like you're having an intimate moment with them. You feel like, especially if they're really agreeing and you see them out there resonating with what you're saying, it's like you've just really connected with somebody and like for real a connection, not a superficial thing, but like wow, like we just I'll see you again and be I see you, and being that bond, that because it's like what was God, there's that other quote that's, if you try and write something that pleases everybody, you maybe get one per, I don't know, I can't remember.
I've heard it though. I remember it.
You know what I mean? But it's like if you really lay it out how you really feel and who you really are and everything, the people that come to see you are your friends, and they get you, and you can create a community that way. You can create a rallying point. But when you think about, the Beat Generation, there was only there was a handful of people hanging out at first. Yeah. It really only spoke to there was 4 or 5 of them, and then a few of the ancillary, other satellite people in there. But the core group was really small, and even like the Impressionist painters or something. They all had lunch, the boating party thing or whatever, and compared notes. And so these things do start relatively small, but you through that work you could identify these are my people, so that go ahead, Audrey.
This is really cliche, but I think the older I have gotten, I have really embraced the idea of life as art, because I'm not as concerned with being seen anymore, of showcasing myself in that kind of idea, and have kind of embraced the idea of art being about some kind of camaraderie or fraternity or sorority or what have you.
That's good.
And also evoking emotions from people, in which case I think that if we live our lives intentionally, that even the smallest moment could be art, right? If you can be there for that person in that moment, if you can have that genuine connection. And what I see, like the prevalent theme that I personally see across society, like social media or TV or whatever, is a lack of genuine human connection, and like a feeling of loneliness. I don't know, like that's kind of, I think nowadays, more of what I would consider art, but I understand that's like probably just
What would you consider art? The perception of social
like,
media as loneliness, or
no, like
just
what I would consider art is being able to have some kind of genuine connection with someone, or evoke emotions and
yeah.
emotional response from them, or to be there like very present in a moment with them that has more meaning than a meme online does. Like a place where we're fully present and having that evocation, that communion, that fraternity, etc. Like I can do that with my being and not just my art. And so then my
like it.
being is art, you know?
Yeah,
Ooh,
very good. Thank you, Audrey.
Audrey, you're a genius. I can't even see you. You have no picture on here. It's not really fair. You can be all voyeur and be like, oh, look at me, all that. But so here's an interesting thing. While I'm in this apartment, the person who owns the Airbnb called me and said that the Discovery Channel wants to come here and film, right? Because they want to talk about Kurt Cobain and they want to do all this stuff. And they're just like, so, hey, the Discovery Channel's here and they want to film. And she's like, well, there's someone in there right now. And she's asking me, would you be interested in being interviewed by the Discovery Channel? My younger self, right? Oh, yeah, jump at the chance. Oh, I made it. Here's my chance to show myself to the world. And like right now, I'm going to tell them no. I don't think I can do it. I really am like, what I'm going through and what I'm doing is very personal. And I feel more private about it. And I'm not sure that I want that on some national TV show. Or, maybe they tell my story or they do put it out of context or something. And then, here I am being broadcast to the world. And then, I don't know. I just feel like handing this is so special to me, and what's happening to me is so personal and so just the wonder. I'm just filled with just wonder, and this synchronicity and all these just magical things are happening to me that I'm just scared to death to hand it over to like mass media at this point.
Yeah, wow.
That's valid.
Could another synchronicity manifest via mass media, or is that just impossible? It must
I
have
don't know.
occurred to you.
I don't know. I just,
could
like
it
I said,
be a chance to talk about the Colfax Museum, or then you run the danger of being taken out of context?
That's what I'm saying.
It's a risk.
I'm having a serious, and this, like I said, when I was young, this, I wouldn't have given a second thought. It just, oh yeah, okay, exposure. And then now I'm like, wow, I don't know. I really.
Is there anything that is there anything that's literally threatened by the interview? I mean, is there anything at stake? Like, will you lose something if you let them interview you? If it's precious, hold on to it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I lose. It's like having it's almost like the sacredness of my path.
It's sanctity, yeah.
The sanctity of my, hey man, this is like my pearl that I found. And I don't,
you're not here to give a tour for the whatever Discovery Channel or whatever.
I'm not so sure. I want just your average, whatever listener that I don't know halfway across the world that's just sitting there watching TV and has no connection to me or no connection to this, like given this intimate look into my life. I don't know if I can do it.
Haven't you ever had that feeling, experience, thought, whatever, that is so like personal and profound that you don't share it with anybody?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
that's what he's speaking to. Like, that's what I'm understanding.
Yeah, I hear it. I'm not mad at you about it either. I'm just saying, look at this as an opportunity and see if there's any way to make it so. Like, if you can go on national TV, is there any way you can command that situation? Can you just decide to be like the voice in the room, like just take charge and make yourself the star and like do it that way? I mean, is it worth taking that chance? I'm not giving you any advice. I'm just
Well, I don't know. This is where
empathizing.
it's been going back and forth, you know, but
Yeah.
it's interesting because the woman that owns this house, we had a phone call about that, and she's like, notice I don't advertise this house at all. She's like, anything you see online about this house was posted by someone else. I don't bring any attention to what I've got or what I'm doing or anything. And she's scared to death of cameras or being interviewed, or she's just an outright, like, if the news called, she would be like, no, absolutely no. The answer is no, right? But you know me, I mean, what, like when I was doing the Colfax Museum, I mean, I was all over the news. Like every news channel was doing something every week, and you know, of course, they always wanted to go with the angle of, you know, former Elvis impersonator starts Colfax Museum. I'm like, can we please not talk about Elvis? It's been 10 years. But they have to grab that angle. They have to grab that soundbite. They have to get what's going to sell and further the story. So I don't know, Zach. I'm gonna give it some debate tonight, but they're showing up tomorrow. And so
you're either going to blow or you stick around.
I told them I'll just go hiking, and you know, there's a nice swimming hole close to here that's got a little cliff you can jump off into the Deschutes River. I'm like, I'll just go down the swimming hole. You guys can film and do whatever you want. But I guess, you know, a lot of it too, just seeing like Kurt Cobain around town, seeing him sitting eating mac and cheese down at King Solomon's Reef or whatever, and being like, hey, dude. And then watching a guy that would put a shotgun in his mouth, like after all that fame, like, I don't know. And maybe all that mass media and the mass followers and everything, maybe it's just like a reaction to that. Maybe it's something where now I'm realizing like it's making me want to keep really special moments more to myself and make it a more personal thing, and maybe just share it with just my friends and you know, my wife, and she can go, oh my God, you know, Johnny B, you're the greatest rock star in the world, and the only people that know I'm a rock star are my wife and kids.
The ones you love the most. That's great. And that's such an excellent companion to Audrey's commentary about life as art and removing yourself from the showcasing of self as artist.
Yeah.
Perfect compliment there.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Audrey. I think we really need to, like you're saying, like that profound loneliness after the pandemic and everything. I mean, I was always a loner kind of anyway, and maybe thought, oh, I don't need people. I can be alone, or I can go this on my own. But then the pandemic just like magnified that 1,000 times and made me realize, holy shit, like I do need people. And I don't need just acquaintances. I don't need Facebook friends. I don't need like, oh yeah, we're friends. I need real friends. I need real connection with people, and like people that I could call in the middle of the night having some crazy emergency going on, and they would be like, what do you need? How can I help you? What are we doing? You know what I mean? Real connection with people.
Yeah. Joe Strummer says, without people, you're nothing.
Right. The superficiality is I think it's killing all of us. I really do. And it's so lonely and so hard to, you know, go through this experience just with you know, the superficiality's just got to go.
Right on, man. Let's stop doing it.
We need to connect, you know. We need to hang, Zach. I got to give you a
let's
plug.
Speak truth.
Audrey, I've never even seen you yet. It's not fair. Come on, turn the camera on.
I'm sitting in a dark room.
Oh, even better, right? You are on it.
She's
You are
just
actually,
holding up
that's
a
you.
white sign with her name on it.
Yeah. So in the name of art, Zach, let's do that. Let's make the connection. And you know, the other real quick about just the music and Denver music and everything, the difference between Olympia music is when Kurt Cobain got big, he wore every band's t-shirt that he loved on MTV. On every time he was on a show,
He was known for that.
he was wearing his friends' t-shirts. He was promoting his friends' bands. He was talking about his friends' bands. And Denver has been highly, highly, highly competitive since the day I got there. It's more of a Broncos, you know, it's more of a sports mentality. If my band is doing, you know, if your band goes well, it's somehow going to take away from my band. And not to take away, say, from
way to go
from
about
the,
it.
not to take away, like, say, from the Fray or their success or anything, but I just remember when they got huge, Katie Couric had him on national TV and just handed him the mic and just said, "So, any other bands in Denver that you can tell me about?" And they said, "I can't think of any."
Oh.
On national TV, they had a
I
shot.
wonder if their manager told them, "Don't mention any other bands."
I don't know.
You
I
got
don't
it
know,
big
but,
now.
but,
Katie Couric show.
but that people wonder, you know, why was the Seattle scene? Why was it a scene? It's
But
because
that's something you see happening commonly in Denver bands, huh? They
Yeah.
don't support each other. It's not a mutually supportive
they do,
community.
you know, they do to a certain extent, but you know, I don't want to like knock anybody or say this. This is just a self-awareness thing, just so people can go, gosh, you know, am I doing this? Am I overly competitive? But I'm just saying that what made the Seattle thing a scene is the camaraderie, and is the, you know, it, what is it, you know, right? It rises all ships, right? When it comes in, and that wave really, you know, was about a bunch. It wasn't about a band. It was about a scene. It was about a group. It was, and they all came up together. And I feel like if we in Denver, I just, and maybe the younger generation, maybe they're more like this, I don't know, but I would hope that they would really just, like, you know, support each other. And
I hope they do.
And when you've got a shot, and when you've got a chance to talk about your buddy, if you're having a lot of success, you know, share the wealth, babe. You know, get the word out, and you know, let's all kind of, you know, come up together, right?
I agree. It's the right way to do it.
Yeah. So there's, but like I said, not to knock anybody, or I that's another part. I have nothing invested in making anyone else feel bad or tearing anyone else down, or or being in competition at all. I celebrate anybody's success, you know. When Nathaniel Rateliff took off, I ran into him down at Tacos de Mexico, just my favorite place ever. We're sitting at the counter right before he took off, and he was so down. And he turned over to me and he's like, "Man," I'm just like, "How's it going, Nathaniel?" You know, I was following his career forever. He's a great talent. And he turned to me, he's like, "Man, if this new album doesn't work out, I got to go back to driving a truck. And I really hope this goes." And he was down, man. And I just said, "Hey, you know, you're super talented. I think you got it in you, bro. I really stick with it." And then boom, that new album that came out, there he was, Jimmy Kimmel, doing everything, getting signed to Stax Records. And I don't think I've met anyone in Denver that deserves it more than Nathaniel.
Did you ever know Duke Crowder? He's not from Denver, but he came through Denver for about 5 years. He had an anti-folk band called PP. It's a funny name, but he was is still a genius lyricist and songwriter. I'll send you a link.
Please do.
You probably ran into him somewhere, possibly anyway. We never really hung out in the same circles, you and I, but I imagine you ran into him at an open mic somewhere, maybe.
Yeah. I'd love to see, I would love to see Denver get something where, I don't, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know that there's like, a house or a park bench or a wall or a something where tourists will actually fly to Denver from Japan just so they can visit that house or
Well,
look at that wall.
you can see the house that Neil used to live in as a little kid, but there's no plaque.
Yeah.
You have to know where it is.
You're talking the
and-
one on Champa?
Yeah, exactly. There
Yeah, I
used
mean,
to be the barber shop.
his dad's old barber shop. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's right there. There's no mention of it and whatever.
No, and there's
but, you know,
flyers posted on the tour for bands and stuff too,
yeah, I get it, but
which is
man,
fine.
at some point, went to the Jimi Hendrix Memorial, you go to the Kurt Cobain thing, and then the other thing when in Seattle, I mean, you have to go visit Bruce Lee's grave.
Oh, wow.
And you think, okay, Bruce Lee's been dead for almost 50 years. And I went up there and was sitting in his grave, and there was like a steady stream of cars of people coming up there that were just like acting like they were like visiting a holy shrine. And
Right.
I felt the same way. I mean, Bruce Lee like impacted my life in a major, major way. My son's life, my grandpa loved him, but you're thinking,
Like water.
he's been gone for 50 years. And there's tourists from all over the world coming there and stuff. So I don't know. There's got to be a balance, I guess, sharing yourself.
Denver needs something like that, though.
Yeah. So
And
anyway,
the
enough
Colfax
said.
Museum might be it.
Thanks for listening, kids. But please, anybody, like let's get this Colfax Avenue Museum. Let's get it done. Let's make it happen.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm a
Thanks,
booster.
Zack.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time. You're the best. Anything to add, Audrey? You're a genius. What do you got?
Nothing. Got a whole lot of nothing, so,
Well,
Yeah.
thanks for joining us, Audrey.
of course.
You've contributed inestimably to this conversation, and I'm sure I'll see you again.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Audrey,
Of
for
course.
real. And
Yeah.
we'll see you guys later, man. Have a good one. Thank you, Zack.
All right,
for hosting.
everyone have a
Yeah,
great
thank
night.
you,
Thanks
Zack.
for coming.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
So long.
Mm.